Greetings and welcome to Phantom's Edge. This will be chapter 23 of this reading. Thomas and Josephina rapidly struck blades, the Hume wasting several weapons trying to outmatch the boy. However, no matter how many swords she lost, the woman replaced them with ease. The fight blazed for a few minutes, with neither warrior stepping down, while the other pirates tried to fend off the bureaucracy soldiers coming aboard to defend their vice-admiral. Both the Hume and the Rodania gazed viciously into each other's eyes, never glancing away even for a split second. They were fully intent on sending the other to a watery grave, even if it meant making their own. It wasn't until Thomas ducked from a swing that the battle turned for the worse. The blade missed, but cut a thick rope along the mainsail. The boy quickly motioned to kick the woman away with his right foot, while also moving himself away from the pole. Josephina was forced back about 3 feet, removed from her fifth sword that stuck in the sail, where she looked up to find a sack falling towards her. She rolled aside to avoid the object, then ran over to pick it up and toss it right at the pirate. Thomas easily sliced through the sack with his right-hand sword, then lunged to slice it across with his left. Josephina ducked from the strike, making the blade swing by only to get stuck in the sail as well, which the Hume thought would be the perfect time to take it into her own hands. She punched the boy with her left fist, slamming her knuckles into his right eye and popping a blood vessel. In his damaged state, the child loosened his grip on his left-hand weapon as he stepped back. Another pirate noticed this and swiftly went to attend to the boy's wound. The vice-admiral yanked the sword out, then was about to lunge for a stab at the Rodania. However, finding another had taken her old weapon, Gregory stepped in and deflected the woman's attack and almost struck with a counter. Josephina missed being sliced upwards in her face by the sword, stepping back for a moment, then yelled, "What the hell are you doing, Greggy?" "Stay back, bitch," the Kenai barked, unsheathing his own blade into his right hand. "I've had enough of you. Leave the ship or be destroyed." Though the two faced off, waiting to strike, Josephina lowered her voice as she calmed down and said, "Greggy, please, don't make me hurt you. Come back to me. This isn't who you are." "Wench, where the hell do you get off telling me who I am?" "Greggy!" "Don't try to be like my father, woman." Irritated, Josephina responded, "Well, you can't have that black pussy anymore. She deserved what she got going against the bureaucracy. Stupid bitch." Gregory moved to fight off Josephina, who only tried to block the Kenai's attacks as he swung wildly and nearly blind. He was skilled only with one weapon in hand, but not two. He was unbalanced, his aim was slightly off, his strikes were weak, and even some were slow. How he was still holding them was a mystery in itself. Still holding back, Josephina said, "Greggy, stop. What about your future? What about us?" "My future is not with you, Hume. I never wanted to see you. Sleeping with you was nothing far from disgusting." The Kenai struck the Hume's sword up with his left-hand blade, not really trying to disarm her, then quickly released the weapon to grab it and throw it into the soldier's right shoulder. Her arm in pain and barely usable, Josephina still blocked the second strike of the pirate's right-hand blade coming down. Weapons grinding and faces inches apart, the two stood pushing against each other as Gregory said, "You're not worth it. You were never worth it." Becoming saddened by the Kenai's harsh words, Josephina asked, "How can you say that, Greggy? After all we've been through, our love was a lie." The Kenai pushed away, swinging his sword to his left side as he switched his grasp for a short while, where he pulled his right fist back and punched the Hume straight in her face. She was forced into the starboard railing, the force making the blade in her shoulder loosen to flop out onto the deck. Then she held her open wound with her left hand as her broken nose bled from the right nostril. Josephina looked at the floor in between her and Gregory, tears forming from her broken heart as she felt unable to believe that her love was for naught. She couldn't hurt her beloved, but he wouldn't trust her or anyone in the bureaucracy again, and no one would accept him for his betrayal, especially not Edison. Gregory switched his weapon back into his right hand, then said, "Look at me, soldier." Josephina wished not to turn her eyes upon the Kenai, but he just raised his voice and yelled, "I said look at me, you bitch!" The Hume raised her head to face the pirate, while he continued, "I loved Marilyn. I loved Jacqueline. I even loved Brunhilde, far after we broke up. But there was nothing saying that I was in love with you. I knew when I left Marilyn, she would set out to stop me just as you have. In her failure, I'm sure the bureaucracy executed her, either for insubordination or incompetence. So with that, I'll avenge her." The Kenai readied his weapon against the Hume, raising it near the left side of his head with the tip aimed at the woman, then continued, "And the black cat, as I send you to hell." Josephina avoided the first attack, then stepped back with each strike the Kenai gave as she blocked them in her outer and inner pain. She never wanted to stand against the man she loved, yet that didn't stop him from wanting to be rid of her. The Vice Admiral was able to shove the Kenai away, but other pirates moved in to fight against the woman. Josephina was able to fend off all of those around her, with several of the bureaucracy's soldiers better than the average warrior were pushing away Gregory every so often. At one point, Josephina deflected an attack and killed the pirate trying to take her on, while hearing a loud bang that wasn't normal. It wasn't either a cannon or a gun of any kind, yet sounded as if it tore apart thick, strong wood. After taking down the pirate, the Hume turned to find the Armageddon being shredded to bits by Emperor Phytogras. She also saw her father, Cornelius, now being the only one standing against the Lepore. Josephina knew her father wasn't going to be able to defeat the Emperor alone, so she tried to call out to save him. However, just halfway through the first word, a pirate lunged for the Hume. The Vice Admiral turned and quickly sliced open a large gash into the person's jugular, never being touched by the pirate, then turned to try and help her comrade once more. Josephina ran over to the portside edge of the pirate ship, jumped onto the railing, and shouted, "Father!" Her call was unheard, but another tried to take the Hume on to finally stop her. The Vice Admiral avoided the attack, backflipping over the warrior to land behind them, then swung her blade across herself from over her left shoulder down to her right side. She swung hard and, with as sharp and strong as the Lepore blade craftsmanship was, sliced deep to sever the spinal cord. Unfortunately, Josephina had no idea who it was until after striking her opponent. Her eyes open and focused onto her foe, Josephina was shocked as she called out, "Greggy?" Kenai was the Hume's attacker, who tried going for a downward swing and missed. He was pulling himself up and was about to turn to face the bureaucracy soldier, but the woman was too quick and slit him across and down without hassle. Gregory stood for only a second, then collapsed as he dropped his weapon over the railing and fell onto his left side. Josephina quickly dropped her weapon and ran over to help the dead man up, but he just laid limp. Holding the Kenai in her arms and crying immensely, the Hume yelled, "Greggy, no!" She then cradled the man closer as she closed her eyes and said, "This can't be. You weren't supposed to die. Please come back. I'm so sorry, my puppy-wuppy fuzzy-usms." Thomas, uncaring to both his blind right eye and to the death of a comrade, slowly walked over, dragging his right-hand double-edged Lepore sword. He stood not far for a perfect swing for a decapitation, only needing to raise his weapon as he pulled it back. Sensing her life in danger, Josephina continued to act mournful as she lowered the Kenai's body back onto the floor. then waited for the right moment. As Thomas moved his blade up, Hume glanced over to see where the second Lepore weapon was, and to make sure it was in arm's length. The boy took one step closer and was about to swing down, which was when the woman grabbed her blade and turned to counter. Josefina sliced the child across his chest, but did not stop the boy's motion. The Rodania released his blade and stepped back when gaining his new wound, yet the sword continued its course. Just as the Hume looked up, it was too late to defend against the loose weapon that plummeted itself halfway into her skull. With that, she too fell to death and landed herself sideways on the deck of the pirate vessel. The Vice Admiral now gone, the bureaucracy soldiers that had taken over the ship were left to fend for themselves. They turned to the Rodania, last pirate to stand, waiting for his wound to bleed out and kill him. Thomas looked around to find all of his crewmates dead, while also the rest of the AO Union fleet destroyed. Yet with each ship gone, so was one or two of the bureaucracies. However, one vessel was getting away. The boys saw far past the starboard side that the Apocalypse was hanging on to continue its voyage, most of its crew members well alive. He glanced around to see the other bureaucracy soldiers raise their pistols at him, each pulling back the hammer as they enclosed the child near the railing, port side of his ship. One of the soldiers aboard looked to the pirate and said, "Well, double-bladed devil, I will say you were quite impressive, but now it seems you've lost. I hereby claim you under arrest in the name of the bureaucracy of Phyle. Have you any last words, child?" Thomas glanced to see the broken and sinking stern of the Armageddon, then smiled as he turned back to the soldiers. He looked past them and noticed several barrels of gunpowder lined closely around the deck of the Apocalypse, both atop the deck and underneath it. The boy's grin grew as he began to laugh, while reaching into his right pants pocket with his right hand as he also reached for his pistol with his left. The warriors surrounding the Rodania were confused as to why the child was acting this way. Then the one that spoke before asked, "What's so funny, Furman?" Thomas's laughter grew louder for a moment, having his thumb pull back the hammer of his sidearm as he revealed a jewelry box from within his mitts. He opened the box, breaking the lid against his leg to keep it from closing. Then as the tune played, he tossed the item straight up into the air. Thomas quieted his laughter, continuing to stare out at the bureaucracy's last vessel, and replied, "Yeah, you're all dead." The boy quickly aimed at the Apocalypse and fired before the soldiers around him could pull their triggers, not realizing what the Rodania had done. They first checked to see if he had shot anyone aboard the pirate vessel. Then before they could find where the shot went out to, an explosion went off. The bureaucracy soldiers turned to find the Apocalypse had blown to smithereens, ignited by just one barrel of gunpowder that was fused by the bullet fired from the boy's pistol. That set a quick chain reaction to blow the others, and before long set the whole ship on fire before it could sink into the ocean, killing its men on board. The soldiers were devastated at their loss, but shortly came to find they might stand a chance against the invasion still with their newly acquired vessel. However, one soldier was hit by something from the sky, causing all to stop and wonder what had happened. The item fell onto the deck and landed upside, where everyone was able to see something written within. As the tune came to its end, the soldiers saw that what was etched into the strange jewelry box was a message that said, "Kaboom." Just as they realized it, at the end of the song, the box exploded and destroyed all that there was of the pirate ship, killing everyone that was on it so they could never claim victory. Alongside that, the swords Thomas had were lost, as did both the AO Union and the bureaucracy. This concludes the reading of Chapter 23. Thank you all for watching and listening. If you like what you've seen and heard, be sure to check out my other two novels, Lore of the Endowment and Ryu the Demon Slayer. Link will be in the description below. Other than that, stay safe, take care, and we'll see you again next week reading Chapter 24.